The bull has basically one job in our operation, right? The bull needs to get those cows pregnant.
When it comes to bull selection, before you even take a look at the bull or even the numbers, there's some questions you must ask yourself. Dr. Salo Zuku at the University of Tennessee walks us through some of these critical questions. Then we must understand that first and foremost, this bull needs to stay healthy and breed cows.
But it's even more important looking at his feet and leg structures.
Then last but not least, we start looking at the numbers, keeping in mind that at the end of the day, is it really about how much you paid for the bull, or
make sure that whatever you pay for that bull, you're going to have a return.
Are we asking the right questions in our bull selection? That's the topic of our show today on this episode of the Working Ranch Radio Show. Welcome you to the Working Ranch Radio Show. I'm Justin Mills. Thanks for joining us here on the program today. A great program lined up for you today, as you heard there in the opening, talking about asking the right questions when it comes to bull selection. And boy, I'll tell you, it's going to be a show and a discussion that we have today that I think is very applicable and very practical for those of us in the ranching and the cattle business. So stay tuned for that. We're going to get to that in just a few seconds here. But before we do that, just two things I wanted to mention. Number one, I know I had some folks reach out and they said, hey, what happened last week? Why wasn't there a new show coming down? Well, here's the deal. From time to time, and we kind of have them scheduled in on sort of a floating schedule, I take a week or so off every now and again just to kind of regroup when things kind of get busy for us in our family household, whether it's in this case this last week, it was regional basketball for our girls. And so things are a little bit busy, so I took the week off. But we do kind of keep steady on kicking out a show each and every week, and appreciate the concern. And by the way, if you miss anything, you can go to the podcast site at workingranchradio.com, find all of the shows that we've had, or if you have a preferred podcast provider like Spotify or Apple or any of those, you can find us there as well. Now, one other thing I wanted to mention, because if you are a regular listener, back in January, Trey Wasserberger joined us as we were talking about sustainable beef, a packing plant that they've been working on for several years. Those doors expected to get opened up here. I think they're scheduled to start this month, if I'm not mistaken. Well, I also wanted to mention that he and his wife Dana, they're going to be having their annual bull sale coming up. TD Angus, most of the best sale. Now they have a fall sale and they also have a spring sale. The spring sale is going to be coming up on Friday, March 21st, selling about 400 plus spring and fall Angus bulls, plus some commercial females and some ranch geldings. They're a horse outfit too, and they're good hands at that. So along with their bulls and their commercial cows, some horses with that. If you want to find out more information, you can go to their website at tdangus.com. And of course, sale's going to be there at the ranch just near North Platte, Nebraska. Check it out, tdangus.com, if you want more information or to get a sale catalog sent to you as well. Well, as we jump into our program here today, joining us on our program today is Dr. Salo Zuku, who is an associate professor and an extension beef cattle specialist at the University of Tennessee. And Dr. Zuku, thanks for joining us here today on the Working Ranch Radio Show.
Thank you, Justin. I appreciate the invite, and it's a pleasure to be here, sharing some knowledge here and having a conversation with you.
Well, I'm looking forward to our conversation here today as we talk about bull selection, because it is the time of the year. And as you and I were talking before we went on air, I realize that there's been a lot of bull sales already happen. There's still some to happen. And there's still every year, as producers, as ranchers, you're going to be in that process of looking at bull replacement, purchasing and new bulls. So our conversation here today is really looking at this, because I think, as you and I were talking before we started here today, a lot of times we kind of get caught up in the wrong things when it comes to this. I was joking a little bit about that we like to, very similar in our industry, we'd like to talk about the weaning weight of our calves and what we sold them for, but we don't necessarily always talk about what our net profits were on our calves. Similarly, when we come to buying bulls, we like to say, well, he was in the top 10 in whatever EPD that you think is great, when maybe that's not really the right question, as your article that I came across is talking about. And really, when it comes down into this, just generally, from a very brief overview, we need to be asking the right questions when it comes to buying bulls, reflecting on our herd.
Yes, Justin. Yeah, you got the main point there of the article that you're referring to. it is important to think about bull selection, bull buy. If we think about it, the bull has basically one job in our operation, right? The bull needs to get those cows pregnant.
Yeah.
That's it. Now, if we can find a bull that can get the cows pregnant and bring good genetics, that is the next goal, right? But what is a good genetic, right? That becomes, start getting into the questions we were talking about, asking the right questions here.
Yeah.
In general, if we think about reproduction, getting the cows pregnant is at least 5 times more important than the growth performance of those calves, and at least 10 times more important than product quality. Now, does it mean that growth performance and product quality is not important? No, that's not what that means. It means is the cows need to get pregnant, cows need to calve, the cow needs to wean the calf in order for any of this growth performance and product quality to give you any money. So we need live calves on the ground. So getting those cows pregnant is the first goal there, right? And then when we think about our beef industry, that bull is extremely important. 92% of our beef cows and 76% of our beef heifers only are bred to natural service. So figuring out what bull we're putting there is extremely important. So now that's when we need to take a step back. And when I have this talk with my producers here in Tennessee, I tell them, so the first thing when we're going to look at bull selection is not looking at any bull or any EPDs.
Okay.
Right? So the first thing that we need to do is basically two. One is, what do you sell? What is your goal with your operation? What are you going to be marketing? And the second question is, what do you have? What does your cow herd look like? And where do you want to go? Right. So the two sets, those are big questions, right?
Yeah.
And we can start diving into a little more detail here.
Now, I find it kind of ironic because, as you said, the first thing we need to do is not look at bulls and not look at EPD or index numbers, but rather start to determine what we want in that. And oftentimes it's just the opposite of that.
Yeah. So my point is, right, though it's extremely important, but I think looking at those EPDs and index is the last step of this bull selection. Okay. And it's counterintuitive, right? And we're talking about this because, hey, I'm buying a bull. I want to go there and find the best EPDs, the best indexes. But to find what would be the best indexes or EPDs for you, you really need to look at your cow herd. You really need to look at your goals. So, for example, what is your operation goal? Are you a seed stock? Are you a commercial producer? You should have that in a quick answer, or you have both, right? What do you sell? Are you selling wean calves and you sell everybody? Are you selling weaning calves and keeping replacement heifers? Are you selling yearlings? So you wean, you background them for a little bit and sell them a little older. You retain ownership and go all the way through the feedlot. So answering those questions will help you figure out what EPDs and indexes will be relevant. So that's how we get to the EPDs and indexes that are relevant, answering this kind of questions. Now, do I have a specific market, right? Can I sell prime beef? Here in Tennessee, I have a lot of producers that sell freezer beef, right? So are you on that type of market? So that changes what you should be selecting your bulls. Another big thing there that would impact how you select your bulls is where your replacement come from. Do you keep your own replacement from the herd, from the cows you're breeding with those bulls, or do you buy your replacement? Several commercial producers don't keep anything. They just go out there and buy replacement heifers, so then they can focus on their marketing strategy when they're selecting bulls.
Well, let's take a break here because we still have a lot more to cover as we are diving into this whole discussion about what are the right questions we as producers need to be asking ourselves when we're looking at bull selection during this bull buying season. And as we just heard from Dr. Zoka there a bit ago, he said, last thing we need to start doing is looking at bulls and then looking at EPDs and numbers. There's things all ahead of that. And we're going to continue with that conversation when we come back. This segment today brought to you by the North American Limousine Foundation.
With rising feed costs and an increased focus on sustainability within the beef industry, feed efficiency is more than a buzzword. It's rapidly becoming a battle cry in an industry challenged to do more with less. By incorporating today's Limousine and LimFlex genetics into your planned crossbreeding program, you can capitalize on the breed's inherent feed efficiency advantage and moderate cow size, while still banking the premiums paid for high-quality, high-yielding carcasses. That's 2 ways to profit instead of 1. Let Limousine and LimFlex deliver dollars to your bottom line. Limousine today, profit tomorrow.
Continuing on here today as we're talking about what are the right questions we should be asking when it comes to bull selection. A lot of times, as we heard in the last segment, we jump immediately into looking at the bulls, looking at the numbers, the index numbers, the EPDs, all of that kind of stuff. And as our guest today joining us, Dr. Salo Zoka out of the University of Tennessee, really, that's the last thing we need to be doing. So let's continue on, Dr. Zoka, more and dive a little deeper into really the questions. First and foremost should be really understanding where we as a herd are at and what we plan to do and where we plan to be as we look forward down the road.
Yeah, absolutely, Justin. So, sometimes we forget, and again, going back there, we're trying to figure out what bull we need, right? Not trying to figure out what bull is the best on that bull sale, because we can all look at that catalog and probably figure out which bull would be the highest selling bull or within the top 3 highest selling bull within that sale. But do we need that bull, right? It's figuring out what bull within those sales that we are going that we actually need. And for that, again, we need to go back and look in our cow herd. So what do you have? Do you have British cow? Do you have Continental cow? Do you have exotic cow? Are you a seed stock producer or a commercial? You have both of them. Does this bull that you're going to be selecting are going to be used for your seed stock cows or commercial cows, or do you want something that can do for both? And the more general you want that bull to be, the harder it is to find that perfect bull, right? So it's going to be a give and take situation there, trying to find a middle ground for all that. Mm-hmm. The more specific we are, the easier or the more narrow we can be and more assertive to what bull would improve our goals. So for example, if we are retaining ownership, we're going to be looking at bulls that are very terminal, that will produce a lot of pounds, a lot of marbling, so we can put more money into that carcass. But if we are retaining ownership and having replacement heifers, we have to be a little more careful there because we don't want our heifers to start being too big. Some of that, when we're moving forward there with our heifers, selecting for that bigger carcass on the steers, also select for more of our bigger cows and mature cows. Mm-hmm. And so that leads me to what kind of cows do you have? Is your cows large frame, middle frame, small frame? Do you want to stay where you are or do you want to change it? So then you need to find a bull that will complement. If you're a large frame and you want to stay a large frame, you need to go find a large frame bull. If you're a middle frame and you're going to go to a large frame, you need to find a larger frame bull. Those are highly heritable traits, and it's fairly easy for us to move forward in a few generations. Reproduction is a lowly heritable trait, so it's harder for us to make great improvements fast. So it takes several generations for us to make improvements there. Then we go into, do we have maternal cows? Do you have terminal animals? And do we need maternal bulls? Do you need terminal bulls? Answering those first questions there, do you keep a replacement heifers? Do you buy replacement heifers? Do you sell at weaning? What is your marketing? Will help you figure out. And sometimes you have something in your mind and maybe your cow herd is different. So if you don't take a step back and take your producer hat off and put a different hat on where you can be more analytic of what you have.
Yeah.
And when I say that, it's like, I know some people are afraid of doing it, but I tell them, nobody needs to know what you have. Mm-hmm. It's you analyzing your own cow herd. Is your average 1,800 pound cows? Are you weaning your calves, 900 pound calves? Because that's what our rule of thumb, right? Yeah. It's about 50% of your cow, right? That she should wean a calf that is about 50% of her weight. That's a rule of thumb, right? Mm-hmm. Not necessarily. And it's consistency of that. There's a chance that cow is not being efficient for you, right? Mm-hmm. So looking at those things that, okay, maybe I need to bring my cow size down, but keep my weaning weights as where they should be, especially if I'm marketing that wean calf, mm-hmm. right? And then if I bring my mature cow size down, now I can have more cows in the same area. So now I can have more calves and go back to the beginning there where reproduction become important, right? So if I have more calves, usually I can sell it for more money than having less calves, a little bit heavier.
Mm-hmm.
So putting everything there, pencil down everything and looking at your herd, where you are, and figuring out where you want to be before we go look at those numbers and those bulls.
Yeah. So I want to direct our conversation now down the road of looking at those bulls that are more maternal focused and those bulls that are more terminal focused. And of course, as we know, when we look at a set of EPD numbers, there's usually an index number on that EPD that correlates to bulls that are more terminally focused or more maternal focused or more moderate in all of that. And I just want to start down that road in your discussion regarding maternal versus terminal.
So the first thing when you think about maternal and terminal traits, not only traits, but breeds, right? We have breeds that are known for more terminal traits and breeds that are known for more maternal traits. Now, even within those breeds, we do have more terminal and more maternal bulls, right? So all breeds nowadays will have, I call them genetic lines within it. It's not true genetic lines, just the way cattle are bred, but within Angus, you're going to have extremely terminal bulls and extremely maternal bulls. Mm-hmm. And you have some bulls that are in the middle ground. Within Simmental, usually Simmental is known for terminal, right? You're going to put more pounds and you're going to bring frame. But within Simmental, you do have bulls that are more maternal, right? So whether you're a purebred and you want to stick with that breed, or you are commercial and you should be taking advantage of crossbreeding, the breed of the bull, it will be the next step of selection, right? So we hit on, right? Goals, look in your herd. Now you select the breed of bull. And finally, we now getting to the point where, okay, what EPDs and indexes will make sense now that will answer your question whether we need more maternal or more terminal bulls. So if you want a more terminal bulls, and we have to have that in mind, like exactly what you mentioned, do we need to keep a replacement heifers? If the answer is yes, so then we still need to keep in check some of the maternal traits. Even though you're chasing the terminal bull, that terminal bull cannot completely disregard our maternal traits. Now, do we need a maternal bull? Are we keeping a lot of replacement, all our replacement, and we have a large number of replacement that will come out of that bull? Or we keep every daughter from that bull will stay as replacement? Okay, so now we need to focus more on those terminal or those maternal traits that will make a better daughter that will stay long in the herd. So longevity is probably one of the biggest things. So for me, if I'm looking at bull, I like to look at phenotype and conformation of those bulls regardless, but it's even more important looking at feet and leg structures if you're going to keep any replacement of those bulls. Regardless of any EPDs, if that bull has bad legs and bad feet, the chances of passing that along for the offsprings, it's great. And then impacting the longevity of those cows. So those cows breaking down as not being efficient and not being able to move around easily, smoothly, and efficiently will go down, right? So for me, that is the one of the key components. Another thing is that bull, when it reaches that 3-4 year old, when it's big, right? Most of those bulls will be over 2,000 pounds. That structure is extremely important for that bull to maintain soundness and being able to go there and actually breed cows. I joke around when I'm talking about this because, you know, you get a bull that has bad feeding legs, and yeah, he'll go out there, find a cow in heat, and we'll breed her, and then it'll be probably feel something on his back leg there, especially the back leg, and then go breed the second one, it hurts a little bit more, the third one, then it's really hurting. Now I'm going to look for a shade. I'm going to lay down until I feel good, and may have 3 or 4 more cows in heat, meanwhile, while I'm trying to recover from that little pain in my back or my leg or whatever place, right? Because of that bad structure. Mm-hmm. So I think that structure will also impact the ability of that bull to be efficient on getting the cows pregnant, which is right. Remember, the first goal there is getting those cows pregnant. Now, looking at specific traits there, you know, all breeds now will have a terminal index. So I like to start there. If I'm a terminal producer, I'm looking for terminal, and I'm not keeping it. Let's assume no replacement heifers, right? Just make it a little bit easier here. So I want the top bull for that terminal trait. And within those, so I'm going to make my cutoff within that setting. Okay, I need a terminal bull. I'm going to look at the terminal index, and maybe I'll cut down to about 15 bulls within that sale that fit what I want. Now from that, okay, what is my next important traits, right? I'm not keeping any replacement. Is this bull going to heifers or is this bull not going to heifers? If the answer is yes, it's going to heifers. Now let's look at calving ease. If we're looking at cows, it's not as important. Then I'll probably look at, okay, am I selling these terminal calves at weaning, at yearling, what I'm selling them at? So then I can look at, okay, which one of these bulls best fit within weaning weight, yearling weight, docility? Is docility important? Well, it might be important for that specific animal because you're buying that bull, but you're not keeping any calves. So you may look more on phenotype than genotype for that, if that makes sense. And then you have your carcass traits, right? So marbling, ribeye area, fat, carcass weight. And then you have to figure out what will pay you the most money. I think that's the key there when you're finding the terminal bull. I like to go first index and then a phenotype, so feeding leg structure, and an index. Probably, if we think about the chronological point of a sale, you go through those EPDs first. So then when you go look at bulls, you already have a small set of bulls. If those bulls, doesn't matter how good those bulls look, if their genotype do not fit your program, your goals, don't go look at them. Mm-hmm. Because you likely will have buyer's remorse later on because that bull didn't fit on what you want for your operation.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's take a break here, and when we come back, I want to now get into more discussion, and we've touched on it a little bit, but that is, as human nature drives us, a lot of times to think that bigger is better, more is better, all those kinds of things. And when it comes to bull selection, sometimes moderation, especially in light for a lot of us that are commercial ranchers, might be something we should be looking more at, and we're going to discuss that when we come back.
Support your cattle's health and productivity with Vigortone minerals. Since 1912, Vigortone has been a trusted name in animal nutrition. Our revitalized product line offers targeted nutrition for every stage of production and every region. Vigortone delivers consistent performance and simplifies your mineral decisions. Wherever you are, Vigortone works. Visit Vigortone.com to learn more.
Capitalize on crossbreeding with Gelb and Balancer bulls. Raise replacement females with added fertility, increased longevity, and greater productivity. Gelb and Balancer influenced females wean more pounds of calf per cow exposed. In the feed yard, Balancer influenced cattle offer increased performance, improved feed efficiency, and have excellent carcass merit. Balancers add the pounds, make the grade, and deliver the value. Make your crossbreeding count with Gelb and Balancer genetics.
Well, as we start to wind down in our conversation here today, my guest is Dr. Salo Zuka with the University of Tennessee. And Dr. Zuka, as we start to narrow in and kind of close out our conversation here today, you've done a great job of outlining really how we as producers need to first and foremost know where we want to be, where we want to go with our herd, what do we want it to look like, focusing on things that are going to bring us back money, like longevity and structure in these cattle and looking at those kinds of things. There's one other element that I want to just have you get your comments on as well. And I think as humans, we're always drawn to bigger is better, more is better. And when we get a sale catalog, we look at that and we start to look at those bulls that have super high, and when I say high, I mean really high numbers in a specific EPD trait or in an index number. And we look at those, and that's the ones we really key on. When in reality, for most of us, we really need to be looking more at moderation. Your thoughts?
No, absolutely. So I can't share much because we're still under my research. We're still going through the research, but basically some of my results, even on fertility of those bulls or fertility potential of those bulls, it suggests that moderation is actually important there. So not chasing that top 1% for some traits. That's just putting there as a general thing there. Just wrap it up there because I talk about the terminal and the maternal one. Angus has a maternal index, which is the $M. Several of the other breeds don't have a specific maternal one. I know Red Angus has one. I think it's called sustained cow fertility. But several other ones will have an all-purpose index, which they'll have their maternal traits focused there, right? So look at those. And I guess within that moderation, those are actual dollar values. So not necessarily those indexes will drive you to the top 1% of everything. But look at those, figuring out, okay, I want to be on this percentage or maybe below, figuring out where you want to be on that maternal or all-purpose index. And again, do the same process, right? So if I'm keeping heifers, which a maternal trait is focused on, okay, you keep heifers. If you don't keep heifers, the maternal trait is not for you. If you keep heifers, yes, use that. Even if you sell terminal calves, I'll say focus on those maternal all-purpose because you're keeping heifers. Put some pressure on that calving ease so you don't lose it. But if you're putting that bull with mature cows, you can lower it. It doesn't have to be as high. You don't need to buy a extreme calving ease bull because usually that is associated with a little bit lower weaning weight, a little bit yearling weight. It's associated with a little bit loss on performance. Now we have those curve benders, right?
Yeah.
That'll be high on everything. But those bulls, usually it's not for the commercial guys. Unless you can buy semen from those if you're doing AI, which we not even touching today here, right? But if you're doing AI, you go through the same process, but you have access to a different kind of genetic. Another thing here is price. Figure out what you can afford. What is your highest value that you can pay for a bull that will still make you profitable, right? It's human nature to go there and brag. You bought the highest selling bull, you bought the highest marbling bull, or whatever EPD or index you think is the highest there. It is our nature to brag about it and say, hey, I have this bull. But it's okay. But at the same point is we are trying to be profitable with our operation. Or I believe most of our producers are trying to be profitable. So if that's your case, if you're trying to be profitable, make sure that whatever you pay for that bull, you're going to have a return, not just being there and putting that bull on display there, right? So figuring out, and then don't go above it because you may be on a sale there and that adrenaline goes up and you keep bidding and you may get that bull that was your number one on your list to buy, but you pay twice as much as you would like to pay. Then you get home, put that bull in the pasture, and every single day for the next 3 or 4 years, you look at that bull and you're just disappointed, not because he doesn't perform, but because you overpaid. So, and you're just frustrated with yourself because you did an impulse buy. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And we do that. That's also our human nature, right? How many times you do an impulse buy and other things. So just
and I think along those same lines is if you're going to pay a certain amount for a bull, figure out what the cost per breeding is going to be on that bull, how many cows he's going to breed. And then if you're going to be upwares in that, $60, $70 per breeding on a natural service, maybe pay less for a cleanup bull and AI instead.
Oh, absolutely. I'm highly in favor of that. And, follow your breeding goals, follow your goals for a certain amount of years. How long does it take for your heifer that bull to breed a cow, for that heifer to become within your herd and productive? We're talking about 3 to 4 years before that bull has a calf that is producing another calf on your operation. So if you keep changing every year your goal, you're never going to achieve your goal, right? So follow your goal. It's okay to change it, but don't change it every year.
Yep. Very good. Well, we could talk more about this, as I enjoy the conversation because I think it's relevant to where a lot of us are at in the commercial industry. And I think as you left us there with is follow your goals. Dr. Zoka, thanks for joining us here today on the program.
Absolutely. If you allow me, I just want to make one last remark here. As bulls fail BSE, their breeding sounds exam. So test your bulls. I'm a reproductive physiologist, and if I don't tell you this when I'm talking about bulls, I'm pretty sure my mate advisor will come all the way from Texas here to Tennessee to slap me. Okay? So doing a breeding sounds exam is extremely important, going back to the goal that bull needs to get the cows pregnant. So, and it's not only when you buy that bull, it's before each breeding season. several people have 2 breeding seasons. And guess what? If you use that same bull in 2 different breeding seasons in the same year, you have to test that bull twice. Think about that breeding sounds exam as an insurance policy. If that bull passes, it's okay, right? You waste a little bit of money, but life goes on. That bull is good to go breed cows. But if that bull fails, now you have a management decision to make. So 30 to 60 days before your breeding season is usually what we recommend, more likely on that 60 day. And that's associated to how long that sperm takes to be produced, which is about 60 days. So 60 days will take a full cycle there on sperm production, so you can make a full turn there.
Yeah. Yep. Very good. And I think it goes back, as you said in your article, the primary job of a bull is to get a cow pregnant. That's worth more than anything else we do. So appreciate your comments here today. Appreciate the conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. I'm happy to help anybody that needs help there. Feel free to contact me through my email or my phone. Just go to the University of Tennessee Animal Science website and you can find me there, or go to our utbeef.co and you can find our articles, the article that Justin was referring there and several other ones that I wrote. So thank you for having me as a guest here in your podcast, Justin.
You bet. Dr. Salo Zoka, Extension Beef Cattle Specialist out of the University of Tennessee, joining us here on the program. If you have any questions about what we talked about, feel free to reach out to him. And I got to tell you, I do want to have him back because as we were talking off air, he was sharing with me some of the research that they're doing in regards to beef cattle genetics and some other things. And I think it'd be very fascinating. Some of the EPD numbers or EPD traits that we see and that we're following out there, as some of those numbers go high, what is being given up on the backside? And I think that's always been a conversation in the industry. But I think as we start looking at bull selection, heifer retention or heifer selection that we're going to keep back in there, understanding if we choose high here, could we be giving up something here that could also cost us down the road? Just putting that all together, I think the more informed we are, the better decisions we can make when we're looking at bull selection and or heifer retention. So I hope to bring that down the road at some point as well. Well, stay with us. Coming up after the break, we're going to be talking about a program that's out there that you could submit and put your cattle into, whether it's your cow herd or even your calves, that might get you a little return on your investment when you head to the sale block with those calves. We'll talk about it when we come back. This segment today brought to you by Safety Zone Calf Catchers. And now here's the captain, Tim O'Byrne, with more.
Hey everybody, Tim here. We're fixing to come up on 1 million downloads of our Working Ranch radio show podcast, which is really exciting. And it got me to thinking about another viral moment that we had back in 2017 when we ran a short Facebook video of the Safety Zone Calf Catchers. And it was so popular, it got 6.8 million views in the first 5 days. I want you folks to check it out, Safety Zone Calf Catchers. It's a great product for all producers. Keep you safe when you're working with baby calves, especially for old-timers like me who maybe can't outrun those cows anymore. Check them out, Safety Zone Calf Catchers.
Calving season is a favorite time of year, but along with that special time are dangers, extra stress, and increased labor. Safety Zone Calf Catchers are all about safety and making processing new calves easier. Designed for ATVs or UTVs, one person can do the job and never be threatened by the protective mother cow. Make this and every calving season safer and easier with a Safety Zone Calf Catcher. Watch videos and customer testimonials or order yours today at safetyzonecalfcatchers.com or call 877-505-0914. Affordable and made in the USA. Make your upcoming and all future calving seasons safer, easier, and stress-free. Durable and designed to work anywhere you can drive your ATV or UTV. Order online at safetyzonecalfcatchers.com or call 877-505-0914 today.
And joining us now on the Working Ranch Radio Show, back and returning again, is Ted Perry, Director of Beef Technical Services for Purina. Ted, good to have you back here on the program today.
Hi, Justin. It's good to be back.
Well, sometimes we need to hit record even in our off-the-air conversations because as you and I were talking here this morning, you had just come back from some meetings and visiting with folks talking about the importance of a mineral program for their cattle. And sometimes we, as producers, I can raise my hand on that one, we try to overcomplicate it.
Yep. And I don't know if it's overcomplicate or we're just looking for the magical bullet. We also get into the problem of if a little bit is good, a lot is better. Mm-hmm. And that can be dangerous with trace minerals because they have to be in ratios. The one I run into a lot is copper. People want to feed, copper is kind of the hot button right now. So we want to feed more and more copper. But you have to keep in mind that the requirements of that cow is about a 3-to-1 zinc to copper ratio. So if we get copper too high, we'll actually decrease zinc absorption because they come across in the same that come across the intestine in the same portal. So yes, whatever was going on that we were worried about with copper, we've got that solved. It's just that now we've got low zinc. And so what we want to do is, the goal, it hasn't really changed. I hate to say it as a nutritionist. I'd love to say, there's this whopping new study out that we have to feed something. Bottom line is the cow has a requirement for all of these minerals. And our job my job as a nutritionist and you all's jobs as producers is we need to meet their requirement. And if we meet her requirements, I like to say, let's not overthink it. Let's give the girls what they need when they need it and just get out of the way and let them they do a pretty good job on their own in spite of us in a lot of cases. I just hear all kinds of silliness come out that there's this additive or there's this, and usually they're spiking with some mineral, whether it's copper or selenium or something. But keep in mind that where the requirements come in is when we do the requirements or the folks that do those requirements, they feed increasing doses, and when they stop seeing an increase in performance or they start seeing more metabolites come through the urine, because once something is absorbed, it's either used in the body or comes out through the urine. So all we're doing as we get these really super high levels of something, all we're doing is increasing the amount of metabolites that have to be cleared through the urine, which I hate to sound nuts, but there's an energy cost to doing it. And there's a huge cost to your pocketbook because you've got to be paying for that going in the mineral. And, we've always talked about the perfect mineral is the cow eats it and then every bit of it's absorbed in the body or used through the milk or anything, nothing is excreted. Well, we're never going to get that perfect. But the bottom line is we certainly want to stick with the cow's requirements. There's lots of great people in universities that are looking at that constantly. Our team at Purina, we have a great research farm, but we don't do mineral nutrition because that takes a whole special set of labs and everything. But what we do is we constantly monitor and we're constantly in communication with those folks. And we make sure that we adjust our minerals to match the latest data. 2 years ago, we increased our manganese and cobalt because of that. And now we are moving in this year, this is completely off topic what we're here to talk about. But then this year we'll be moving our mineral tubs to match our bag mineral. That's what the cow needs.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. So in regard to trace minerals, a lot of times in forages, we get samples back if we're testing our feed to know what's in that, and we get a readout of that. But your thoughts in regards to the trace minerals from what cattle might get or may not be able to get naturally versus what is supplied through a mineral package?
Because trace minerals are so small amounts and so important in small amounts, as a nutritionist, I give very little value to the trace minerals for the forages. So if I get a forage test and somebody says, well, it's got this much zinc and copper, I really get nervous how absorbable that is. So I kind of ignore that. And the mineral that you feed has all of the traces. Now for the macros, the calcium, phosphorus, potassium, those we definitely want to take into effect on the forages themselves. And then we balance that, which is why we have all these different, everybody, not only Purina, but everybody has all these different minerals, high mag, low phos, high phos, all of that is to match what the forages are producing.
Sure. Okay. So we're starting to see, and we have seen for many years, and we've talked about it on our show from a marketing standpoint, is program cattle. And along with that, Purina has come out now with some opportunities that are both for cows and for calves that kind of signal to those buyers that, hey, this herd or these set of calves have been on this program. And from a nutritional standpoint for those buyers, giving them that confidence in the calf or the animal that they're purchasing. So explain a little bit more about it.
Yeah, this is new for us. Purina, historically, we make minerals, we make products, right? Well, now what we've had is over the past few years, we've had other parts of the industry come to us looking for help. And I'll cover, and like you said, one program, we've got two programs that are helping to market calves. And what they're doing is they're identifying these calves have had something done to them so that if I'm the buyer, if I'm an order buyer, then there's less guesswork in those calves, right? I mean, that's kind of what all of these value-added programs do.
Yep.
Whether it's NHTC or Source and Age, it tells me something about the calf rather than that's a red calf standing there in the sale ring that weighs 500 pounds with 15 of his brothers. Mm-hmm. We know something more about those calves. So, if there's something we're looking for, we've got it. All right. Well, what has happened is with the VAC 45-day programs, and those are fantastic programs where we're weaning the calves and preconditioning the calves. Those are fantastic programs. But one of the things that all of the vaccine companies have come to us over the years and said, because they know every one of those programs, those preconditioning programs, there's a set of regulations about shots and deworming and management, but it always says they have to be wean and bunk broke for 45 days. Mm-hmm. But there's no nutrition guidelines there. So if you want to take it to the nth degree, what it says is that calf hasn't nursed for 45 days.
Yeah.
The problem with not having those nutritional guidelines is that you could have those calves, if we weed them in the fall, we just put them on a grass trap, and it's, relatively poor grass trap, and didn't have a good mineral program on mom. That calf, his nutrition is so low that he can't mount an immune response when we give him the vaccines. So we put them through our preconditioning program. Those calves go to the feed yard, they break. We test them for titers. We get no titers. We go back to, the place where we bought the vaccines and say, hey, your vaccines didn't work. Well, the reason the vaccines didn't work is that animal's immune system wasn't ready to go. So what we did was we started with that in mind and working with the companies. It's just the set of nutrition requirements around the vaccination programs. So if you are already I was just in Iowa. So if you're in the Iowa Gold Tag program, all this it's called Purina Plus. So all this is a nutrition program for the weaning and growing phase to get into that 45 days so that the calf gets everything he needs so that he can mount the biggest immune response and basically have the best backgrounding situation possible for that calf. The requirements are fairly simple. You work with your local Purina dealer and their tech people, and they will set up a feeding program based on what you have as a producer and what you want to use. And then that gets them, to the best use of the facilities and resources to that VAC 45-day program. But we know that those calves have the highest immune response going. Mm-hmm. So that's the Purina Plus program.
So there's one for cows too, and which is going to be about more that this herd has been on a program as well.
Exactly, because when we were launching the Purina Plus program, to our surprise, we had order buyers come to us and say, that's kind of cool. We like what you're doing. We like the fact that we're taking the guesswork out of whether the vaccines will work. But what our folks really want to know is, are those cows on a good mineral program? Because a lot of this, Texas A&M Ranch Rail data said this years ago, if a cow herd is on a good mineral program, those calves have higher titers and those calves don't get as sick as often. So what they asked us after we'd gone through and done all this work with the Purina Plus program, they said, can you just identify herds that are on a complete mineral program? So, why, yes, we can, because we can. I mean, I can as a Purina nutritionist, but our dealers work with the producers all the time. And that's the program that we developed. It's called the Wind and Rain Value Added Program. And it's the world's simplest value added program to get into, because all you have to do is, working with your dealer, is to have 2 bags of Wind and Rain mineral or 1 mineral tub per 2 calves sold, because each calf has to have a cow usually. Mm-hmm. And that's the record keeping part of that. Then there's a certification that follows the calves. And we're starting to work with smaller barns, but we started out, the Superior folks, they took this and ran with it. And the first year they marketed 23,000 Wind and Rain calves. And then I think a lot of us are familiar with that Kansas State works with Superior mm-hmm. and Merck, and they piece out all of the value added programs every year. And then in 2023, I haven't seen the 2024 data, but the 2023 data, the Wind and Rain calves were worth $5. That program itself was worth $5.31 a hundred more for that, for being in the program or having that merit badge is what I call them.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, it just worked out that the order buyers came to us and said, can you do this? We did it. And they obviously won it because they responded, because those are the ones, let's face it, those are the folks that are responding to make these calf prices go up like that.
Mm-hmm. The thing I like about this, Ted, is in the market is that it's market driven. We're seeing it coming from the top down to us as producers. So I like that aspect of it. So you mentioned earlier about the Purina Wind and Rain for the cow herd. Just talk about enrolling in this. Both you did a little bit about the cows, but also with the calves. How do we get enrolled in these programs?
Okay. These are all enrolled through your local Purina dealer, because the local Purina dealer they have the access or the contact with their producers, and they enroll them. And then the certifications follow the calves through the programs and go to the sale barn. There's several sale barns around that are using it, and they're having very good luck with it. Every sale barn I've talked to has been interested in the program, because let's face it, if I'm marketing calves, if I'm marketing your calves, my goal is to get more money for you, because that makes you a happy customer. And if these programs make more money, then, by all means. Mm-hmm. So what it takes, if somebody's listening to this and they're interested, talk to your Purina dealer. And then what we like to do is have the producers and the dealers that have the relationship with the local marketing facility, have them talk to the marketing facility. I'm more than happy to, I've been to several of those meetings. I'm more than happy to help any way I can. But it doesn't do me any good to drive up and down the road and say, hey, there's a sale barn, stop in and say, hey, I'm Ted. They're like, we don't care. Like I said, it's the marketing folks. Everyone has been involved with everyone that has been involved with the program. It's been really easy to get that program's moving forward, because the producers are interested in it. And like I said, all the way the dealers and the sale barns, everybody that's working with that end is having good luck with that. And it's working good.
Finally, one thing, Ted, real quick. I know it's important to stop by your local dealer, visit with them. You can get the tags off those bags if you want to know what they look like as far as what's all in those, but also the website where they can get all that information as well.
Yep, at purinamills.com. They can get all the contact information and look through the website, and all of that information is on there. What a lot of folks do, I just had another one in Iowa today that said, I looked on the website and they said to ask the expert, and they thought that was easier, so that they just dialed that number and called me.
You instead. Yeah.
And that's fine too, because I have a whole team. The tech service group is certainly not just me. We've got a whole team, and everybody's up on these programs, and we're all excited to make them happen. It's fun from a feed company standpoint. We've never done anything like this before, and this has been fun. It's been well received, and it's been fun to do.
You bet. Well, Ted, thanks for joining us here on the program today. Very insightful, and I think some common sense conversation that we had as well. Appreciate you being here.
Okay. Thanks for having me. Talk to you later.
You bet. Thanks, Ted. Ted Perry, Director of Beef Technical Solutions for Purina, joining us here on the program today. Like you said, the website, if you want more information, is purinamills.com, or, of course, you can also stop by your local dealer as well. And here's the deal, folks. Here's the thing about it. If you're already doing this and utilizing these mineral programs, take advantage of this certificate or this badge that can go along with these cattle that you're selling. It's not going to cost you or hardly be any more work for you. Utilize these programs that are out there. If it helps you get another $5 hundredweight on these calves, well, then it's going to be well worth your time to mess with it. And I encourage you to just at least check it out. Stop by your local dealer to get more information. Coming up next, the Captain Tim O'Byrne will be in for this week's edition of Tim's 2 Cents when we come back.
Hey, Justin. Hey, everybody out there in Working Ranch Radio Land. It's cool, windy, and we got some moisture down here in the southwest, which we really needed. I hope you folks are getting everything you need. See some calves popping and everything's going on here on our Facebook Friday post. Now, Justin, we are putting together the finishing touches of the April-May issue. And I love the best part of the magazine for me is the Rancher's Journal. I just love it. We've done it now for over 125 issues. And I love it when you families open up and let us into your lives for 12 days. I guess it's kind of fun because you realize that you're just as crazy as everybody else is in ranching and pretty much working 24/7. But this issue, there's a great journal by Tori Durham Pearson, Winter on the VX Ranch, cheering on the Montana State Bobcats, plus lots of giggles from Grandpa Tickles and cow dog licks. There's some really good photos in this journal, and kind of centering around the grandson is kind of the star of the show here, and he's living the life. Let me read a little bit on the intro here. Our family ranch is located in southwest Montana along the foothills of the Madison Range. The property was homesteaded in 1889 by Wilbur Herrick. George Herrick later took over the ranch and was joined by his brother Frank Herrick. Frank and Minnie had 3 daughters, the youngest being my grandmother Ramona. Due to having all girls, the grandma being the youngest, she was often found laboring out in the fields as opposed to housework. Her and my grandpa Pete, after marrying, bought out the ranch from her sisters. In addition to ranching, they owned and operated an outfitting and guiding business in the mountains behind the ranch for the duration of their working years. At current, the ranch remains a family operation. And I got to tell you, this is such a great journal. The country is gorgeous. Oh my gosh, it's just beautiful Montana country. High mountains in the background and beautiful hay meadows and grasslands. Check it out, April-May issue. And I have an announcement to make, folks. We are going to be back in Tractor Supply on the newsstand with this issue. We're very, very happy about that. We had a great deal of success several years ago with it, and we decided to bring it back by popular demand. So check us out in Tractor Supply. Tell everybody we're there. Back to you in the studio, Justin.
All right, thanks, Captain. Appreciate the update there. A great partnership to have with Tractor Supply. And for those of you that have been hearing us talk a lot about getting a subscription to Working Ranch Magazine and you haven't yet done that, well, the next time you're in Tractor Supply, it's going to be pretty easy for you to just pick one up off the shelf there. Check it out for yourself. And if you want to subscribe, you can go to the website at workingranchmag.com. And for those of you that have been regular subscribers to the magazine, be looking for that next edition that's going to be coming out here shortly. Well, due to travel for both meteorologist Don Day and myself this week, we're not going to have a weather update from meteorologist Don Day. And of all the weeks, really, for us that I wanted to get an update on what the weather's going to look like, this was one of those. But my travel just kind of put us in a bind to where it was hard to get caught up with meteorologist Don Day. So be sure to check in next week as we'll hear from him as far as how things are looking for the next few weeks, looking out for all of us with calves hitting the ground and the stormy weather. It's a combination that not a lot of us don't like to see. Nevertheless, moisture is much needed for a lot of areas across the country. So we'll check in with meteorologist Don Day for that. Well, stay with us. Coming up after the break, I'll tell you what we're going to be talking about in upcoming editions of the Working Ranch Radio Show. A couple great topics coming up here on the Working Ranch Radio Show in the next couple of weeks. Next week, we're going to be talking about heart disease. We've always thought that high-altitude disease was something we saw more in the western part of the country or in higher elevations, but we're starting to see it now in lower elevations, so we're going to be talking about that next week. Following that, in the following week, AI technology and its use in ranching, so be sure to tune in on upcoming editions of the Working Ranch Radio Show. The Working Ranch Radio Show is a production of Working Ranch Magazine, branded #1 by America's Ranchers. Now, if you got an idea for a show topic, please reach out to me. You can send me an email at justin.workingranch@gmail.com. Tune in next week, same time, same place. I'm Justin Mills, and until next time, keep your chin down and your mind in the middle. So long.